Welcome to tonight's InfoWars Nightly News broadcast. The date is Wednesday, November 16, 2011. I'm Aaron Dykes sitting in, and tonight really is a tale of the parasites versus the plebiscites as we have insider trading and the feds taking over and Occupy Wall Street protesters being pushed out of their parks and clamped down upon. We'll get into that in just a moment. Later in the broadcast, we have an exclusive interview that our camera guys got with Immortal Technique. He's a very prominent rapper in the anti-New World Order circles. He's been covering issues like 9/11 for a long time. That's coming up in the broadcast, but first in the news, there are timing questions that have emerged in the MF Global customer cash shortfall. That's because at least $200 million was found to be short October 27, just days before the firm declared bankruptcy after bad bets on the European sovereign debt crisis. MF Global Holdings Limited may have faced a shortfall in customer funds even as far back as October 27. Just hours before the bankruptcy filing, MF Global executives told regulators they believed a shortfall had somehow occurred, possibly starting on October 27 or October 28. The people told the paper. Then that number later went to $600 million. Then in Paul Joseph Watson's report, based on Bloomberg and other reports, you find out the number's really almost $900 million, of which there was a shortfall. In Paul Watson's article, MF Global looted customers' accounts via internal bank run, but the big players got a warning ahead of time that the financial broker was set to collapse. And you go on to find out that many people were warned, and there were miraculous transfers just before the firm went bankrupt, and billions of dollars were transferred. And why was there a shortfall? Well, we'd all like to know. You've heard Gerald Celente on this broadcast last night and on the Alex Jones show today talking about his personal losses in MF Global, how they shorted him and some 21,000 other customers, according to these reports. And at least one CFTC commissioner is upset about it. Bart Chilton, a Democratic commissioner of the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading, who reports on the $600 million missing. The money's not where it should be. I think something nefarious has happened, potentially something illegal. Yeah, you think so. Possibly nefarious, possibly illegal. Obviously should be looked into, but neither MF Global nor its former chief, John Corzine, who just resigned, has yet been charged with anything. And so we'll see how that develops. But they do report that many customers will be getting at least 60% of their money back, which would be a number figuring $520 million out of the total $869 million. That was essentially stolen and questionably transferred just before the bankruptcy. Something to watch. Meanwhile, New York police have ousted the Occupy Wall Street from Zuccotti Park, and Mayor Bloomberg said that decision was his and his alone. Mine and mine alone, the quote says. We'll get more into later how it was not his decision. It was coordinated federally through 18 cities. But they did get everyone out of the park, all their tents, belongings, and they brought in the sanitation workers who said, we're going to disinfect the hell out of this place, calling it a safety hazard and so forth and so on, saying it was a haven for criminals. We have some of the video now from Luke Radowski of We Are Change's coverage of the ousting of the occupiers.
All persons must temporarily leave the park. If you refuse to immediately remove your property from the park or refuse to leave the park, you will be subject to arrest. Any property left behind will be taken to the Department of Sanitation garage at 57th Street and 12th Avenue. All tents and other property have been removed from after the tents and property have been removed from Zuccotti Park, and the park has been
So they're pushing them out here, and then we have another clip where they're beating people in tents and pushing other people back. And we're going to show you coming up, too, where they had the sound cannons waiting and ready to go. And so you'll hear some of the protesters chanting, reciting the First Amendment, which certainly should apply even over these civil codes, but that's the very premise the police are using.
Freedom of speech, freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people.
And then, as if it wasn't enough to violate the First Amendment of the actual occupiers, we also have a clip of them pushing the various press members back, including Luke, who was repeatedly told he had to move further and further down the sidewalk and away from what was going on. Let's play that clip, too.
You have to leave. You cannot block the roadway. You will be arrested.
All day, all week, occupy Wall Street. 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 All day, all week, occupy Wall Street.
Yeah, so you can see here that this part of the crowd is almost all journalists. Everybody's got cameras clicking away. They're being pushed back by police also. And of course, all these people, regardless of what you may think of their views, are completely protected by the First Amendment, except when they're not in a de facto clampdown from the New York police. But of course, it was not just isolated in New York. It happened everywhere, among other places, Oakland. In fact, it happened in at least 18 cities where there were Occupy protests going on. And Washington's blog puts together how Homeland Security coordinated the 18-city police crackdown on Occupy protesters. And chief among that is the Oakland mayor, Jean Quan, who admitted there was a coordination, there was a conference call going on prior to this. They discussed, among other things, how to use city codes to have an excuse to get people out, you know, sanitation and safety premises, as they did in New York. You also have mayors and police chiefs who talk strategy on protests. That's in the AP, and they admit that they, you know, wanted to urge the removal and that they would, you know, use excuses like the criminal elements supposedly showing up, supposed gang activity, the presence of homeless people just seeking food, and all the rest of it. But what you really got here is a federal coordinated crackdown. They, quote, advised to seek a legal reason during these conference calls that focused on zoning laws and existing curfew rules to skirt the protection of the First Amendment, the first among the Bill of Rights, which were not to be violated for any reason instead of any reason you could think of, as you see here in this disgusting crackdown on Occupy protest. And it happened all at once, and it's just disgusting that Homeland Security has, in fact, been turned against the people. They started off at the beginning of the Patriot Act with violating the Fourth Amendment and so forth and so on, down to the TSA searches, and now it's down to the First Amendment. I guess the Second Amendment's really all that's left, but I'm sure Homeland Security will find a way to come after that as well. And there's more articles confirming it. Wonkette reported on it. Surprise, surprise, Homeland Security coordinated the crackdown. You've got the Examiner, who spoke to someone in the Justice Department who confirmed that indeed it was Homeland Security who coordinated these conference calls among the police chiefs and mayors of these various cities. So we'll look more into that as it continues to develop. In other Homeland Security and Department of Justice news, the Department of Justice is trying to make it a crime to, quote, lie on the internet. And here, Kurt Nimmo reports on how they plan to use the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act to possibly punish not only serious cybercrime or hacking incidences, but people who simply lie or provide false information, violating terms of service of third parties on the internet. And they give the example in Digital Trends of reporting a fake name on Facebook, lying about your weight on a dating site, or using Google if you're under the age of 18. So not only does this have the potential to criminalize ordinary behavior, it's also a ready-made excuse to crack down on political activity, which we know irks the system. They've been trying to take on supposed conspiracy websites in numerous ways. We know the Department of Defense, among others, have been deployed to counter conspiracy theorists and take them on in the cyber world. We know people like Cass Sunstein have called for disruption and outright infiltration of conspiracy theorist groups. And now they just have another tool they can use to crack down on that or any other group. We're all at risk. It's definitely one of those hang together, hang separate situations as they really try to bring in new levels of tyranny as they try to shut down what was once the Wild West of the Internet. And it's going to become very corporate, and Alex has reported on all of that Internet 2.0 plan already. So we are back from break. I'm still Aaron Dyke sitting in on this InfoWars nightly news transmission. Now, in other news about how the feds know best, we have Homeland Security's linked group now training citizens in Colorado that their best pal could be a terrorist. And it goes on to explain how there's a course in quote-unquote community awareness programming that is funded by this organization, and they've produced a video previously saying that buying gold's a suspicious activity and a number of other ordinary kinds of events. And it's a woman named Diana Woodson, and she's training people basically that, you know, says here an ex-Marine from Lakewood whose wife gives him the evil eye when he's sizing up potential threats at Denver Airport as a problem, as well as a scenario where a New Yorker refuses to ride on subways and spends as little time as possible in high-rise buildings. So it's setting this whole atmosphere of being paranoid wherever you are. And then it goes on to explain how this course teaches you that even your closest neighbor could be a terrorist. It's not going to be the person you think it's going to be, said Woodson. He's your best neighbor, your best pal. He doesn't always look like the bad guy. It could be someone unassuming. And that's a course called Counterterrorism Education Learning Lab, or CEL, a little term they throw around to make it sound tough. And I think we have here some clips from the previous video they produced on how buying gold's so evil, where they got John Elway, another talented NFL guy, to work for Homeland Security.
I'm reminded of the morning of September 11th, 2001. I remember turning on the television and saying, how can this possibly be happening in the United States of America? Well, it's something that we're going to have to deal with the rest of our lives. The horrific events of September 11th and the Oklahoma City bombing have made it clear that terrorism is not only a very real threat abroad, but also right here at home. Anyone can become a victim of terrorism, anytime, anywhere.
Some terrorists even gain employment to monitor day-to-day activities to gather detailed information about their target.
Have you ever been on a bus or a light rail and noticed a bag that has been left unattended? This could be an example of a terrorist determining how long it takes for people or security to respond.
Terrorists not only need to raise money, but they also need to transfer and spend it in a way that doesn't bring attention to themselves. There are many signs to watch out for, such as witnessing an unusually large transaction that's paid for with cash or gift cards. Any of these surveillance methods may be a sign that something isn't right, and you should report it to the kayak. It's important for all of us to realize when a terrorist incident occurs, it affects everyone. You can make a difference in helping stop an attack by being able to recognize the 8 signs of terrorism and alert the authorities. If you or a family member sees any sort of suspicious activity, you shouldn't attempt to stop a suspect. Rather, report it immediately by calling 911 or the kayak.
So there you have it. Just more implication that if you're selling gold or talking to your neighbors or trying to sell something secondhand, that could be suspicious. This is all about supposedly training people to trust the federal government, Homeland Security, and not trusting the people you actually know. And notice how, too, it's not about Muslim terrorists infiltrating the country. It's about targeting, watching, surveilling, being paranoid of other ordinary Americans, because this is an apparatus meant to descend upon the American people. And you've seen countless examples of it if you've been following this program at all. Here it is again, and it's just absolutely disgusting. A little tip, we can take this back to kindergarten. The stranger is the federal government. The stranger is Homeland Security. You don't know those people. It's statistically known what kind of creeps fill up those agencies. Meanwhile, you need to count on your neighbors or the people you actually know. That's all we really have in this world. We also have the Special Ops Commander who says the SEAL Raid book is a lie because it goes against the just ridiculous official account of the killing of bin Laden. It's just not true. A U.S. Special Operations Command spokesman, Colonel Tim Nye, said it's not how it happened. So even though they staged the Situation Room photo with Obama, Hillary, and the other gaggle of people, even though they threw the body overseas without any, over into the ocean without any evidence, even though their own account was repeatedly debunked and witnesses on the ground said a lot of other things happened, this account can't be true either. It's really kind of, as this suggests, choose your own adventure, choose the story you want to believe, because no evidence has ever been put forward that bin Laden had anything to do with 9/11 or really that he was even killed here in this special operation. You've seen SEAL Team 6 take a lot of losses without a lot of explanation. And here again, from this Farrer guy that they're saying not to trust, is another account of the helicopter crashing during the raid. We got that again from witnesses on the ground in Pakistan. So you choose what to believe. I'm sure it'll be the federal government. We also have a update on the Occupy protests. They have reclaimed, some of them anyway, their place in Zuccotti Park, and they're planning to have a larger protest tomorrow, Thursday. And they've also got a lot of lawyers backing them up, telling them that they do have a right to re-enter. We'll see what happens there. We do hope it remains peaceful on both sides. We know there could be provocateurs within the protest groups, and we know police, unfortunately, have a tendency to overreact sometimes, especially when they've been given orders to regard people as not really within their rights to simply protest. Thanks for tuning in. Alex will be back later. For tonight, that's all we have.